Hello, friends. Good evening, good morning, and wherever you are, and so forth. So, we are going to talk today on the Cloud Show about a very important topic. Well, many of our topics are very important. This one as well. We're going to talk about certification. We're going to talk about how to prepare for a certification and training material and various things, and being certified in this case. Probably specifically focusing on Azure and talking about how to study and pass the AZ204 Azure Developer the hard way. And to do that, we have with us, as always, at the Cloud Show, we have an expert. We have a star on the show. His name is Tore Nestenius. Hello, my friend. It's good to see you.
Yeah, hi, Magnus. Nice to see you too. It's a long time ago. Was it the Svetu conference in Gothenburg last 6 months ago?
That's probably true. We've known each other for a bit and a half in this industry, in this tech industry. Come together at various conferences, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great.
I remember listening to your early kind of Azure talks in the kind of Svenug Skåne, or there's kind of like 10 years ago you doing your user group thing in Malmö.
That's true. It's been a while. Yes. Yeah, well, thank you for reminiscing for a bit there. That's many years of being in the community and having a lot of fun. So also on this show, this show is about the topic which is top of mind for you, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I want you to tell the audience just a little bit about Tore Nestenius. What's up with you?
So I'm a Microsoft.NET MVP. I just got my MVP award for like 2 months ago. So kind of yay. This was the time, that was good. So I work as a full-time trainer, instructor, and consultant. And so I create training material in the areas of .NET, Azure, security, and architecture. Mm-hmm. And I've always been, passionate about sharing knowledge. So way back in the kind of stone age of the internet, I created my first website, and that became a site called Programmer's Heaven. So at Programmer's Heaven, it became a pretty large web community back then, with like 500,000 visitors a month, with the downloads of forums and links, doing everything. So I've been around for quite some time, and been programming for almost over 40 years. So it's
it's well, yeah, for sure. So and you're a freelance, you're a trainer and a consultant. Your company TN Data, is that right?
Yeah, the TN Data Consult, or Tore Nestenius Data Consult, but the name is, naming is hard,
Naming is hard.
Yes, sure.
All right, so you run your own show and create training materials and deliver trainings and so forth.
Yeah.
So okay, cool. So let's pivot into the meat of this. You were saying to me, I asked you what should we talk about on the show, and when I invited you to come on, and you were like, hey, can we talk about how I studied and passed the AZ204 the hard way? I'm like, yes, but tell me more.
Okay, so last summer, I passed the AZ900. I thought it is a good kind of warm up to get into the certification track. Mm-hmm. And then it came to the AZ204, oh, what a beast. Now it's a big one. There's a lot of things to kind of cover. But maybe first talk about why did I kind of study for it? Because, for me, I've been using the Azure portal and Azure CLI for some time. But, you get it working, but sometimes you don't really understand how it works and why it works and why I should use this feature or what does that button do. So I thought that, it's time to kind of, get serious and really learn the ropes and learn how Azure, works under the hood. So I decided to take the AZ204 because it's more developer focused compared to the AZ104, that are more kind of infrastructure focused.
Right. So I was just going to say, let's quickly check that. 104 is infrastructure. What's it called?
Administration, developer associate something.
Developer associate, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then it comes down to a little bit more specified, right? Then you go for a developer focus, and that's the 204.
So you can either take the 104 or you take the 204. You don't need to take the 104 first.
Okay, sure.
So I went with the 204 first, and as a trainer, when I kind of learn new things, my mantra is always that you don't understand something until you can explain it to someone else. So in my case, okay, I've been doing the studying, doing the MS Learn thing, doing some Udemy training, but and usually you would take notes. You would write down, in maybe OneNote or in some Word document. But in my case, if I really should understand this thing, I really need to condense it down or distill it down to something that I can actually explain to others. So in my case, I actually created training material, PowerPoints, exercises. How would I explain diagnostic settings in Azure to someone else, to a junior developer, for example?
That is an excellent question, by the way.
Yes. Or delegated SAS access tokens. What is that? How does that work? And so on. So during my studies, I kind of compile everything I learned, down into exercises, PowerPoints. How would I teach someone else, this topic? So that was my kind of, one part. But at the same time, when you want to make exercises for a future junior developer or senior who wants to go into the cloud, I mean, doing Hello World application is a pretty boring thing. I mean, okay, you can get Hello World up and running, but now what? You want to upload something more advanced, when you want to do, I mean, if you want, because my thinking is that, when we go to the planet Mars, when we want to explore Mars, we send up rovers, robots, doing experiments, doing, taking measurements, observing, the planet Mars. And we need the same approach when we want to kind of start, learning about the cloud and Azure. You want to send up something more kind of, competent, not Hello World. You want something to send up that you actually can use to do experiments, to observe, to really see, what happens when I do this thing. So while I was kind of doing my training material, I was doing exercises. So I decided to create an open source project called the Cloud Debugger for Azure Developers. So this is like an ASP.NET Core application. You can deploy it to app services, container instances, container apps, and then you can, from that tool, do various experiments. You can write to blob storage. You can talk about the storage tiers in blob storage. You can write to a queue. You can receive a webhook events from Event Grid, and so on.
And so on. So you went into understanding and also showing how to explain. I mean, learning how to explain it, but showing how to how would I explain this to someone who has never seen this before?
Yeah.
Right. I have a funny anecdote there. I hope it's funny. I think it is. Some years ago now. This has been a while. There was a little app that was sent out in production, and the performance was not the greatest we have ever seen, right? They had some issues with it. And I took a look at it, and it wasn't very difficult to see. I did check, like, what kind of traffic are we talking about against this blob storage account, which was the scenario here, the application called a blob storage account. And I saw that there were some strange patterns, recurring patterns in the storage communication. And then I dug into that code, and I could immediately find pretty much a copy paste from the Microsoft sample page. This is how you connect to storage. And the developer had copied that and pasted it in. So clearly he was ill-equipped for the task, let's say, right? He just copy pasted and see that it worked. So what he wound up doing was, for every request that he made to storage, he would always check if the container was available, if there was a container with that name. So essentially he doubled both the latency, of course, but also doubled the transactions, because he asked first, like, is the folder there? Yes. Okay, I'll put a blob in it. Is the folder there? Yes, I'll put it. It was always there. It was always there, right? And it was really funny because it was such a basic challenge, right? And that's what I see sometimes also, to pivot back to what you were talking about, when someone is doing a demo or a little exercise, they go like, okay, so here's how you can do it. And then the person who receives that maybe doesn't understand, right? So they copy paste, and the result can be humorous or just really bad.
One example is that, when you connect to Azure from maybe .NET or Java or whatever language, you typically use the default Azure credentials class. You get token, great, it works. But do you really understand, what happens inside? And for me, there can be some pretty bad, results if you don't fully understand and fully configure properly, because if it can't find any credentials to use, it might take up to 8 to 10 seconds for it to complete. And those insights you can actually get with my tool. And of course, the default Azure credentials is really powerful, do a lot of things, really kind of convenient. But there's very little insights into how it actually works internally. And of course, what do I do? Well, I download the source code, create a class library, copy the source code, and add my own kind of debugging hooks into the actual kind of class and into the code. So I can actually follow and see exactly which credential was used, what happens internally, which one was selected. That is not really that obvious, which credential am I actually using?
I get it.
So that is also part of the kind of cloud debugger, to really give you the insights into how thing actually works under the hood. Because otherwise, it's like your example, you check for the container if it exists every time, because you don't look under the hood. And I think that is the same thing when you work with database, for example, entity framework or any kind of database library. You work with it, it works. But have you actually checked the SQL against your SQL server, using a profiler to look at what are you actually sending to the database? And sometimes it can be really, really, catastrophic, amount of bad queries that you make.
That's absolutely true. I've seen a lot of that as well. So I'm kind of sitting here smiling about it. But it's really interesting how you describe exactly this, that you can download. Much of this is open source, the SDKs and the various things. You can literally just download them and run them yourself on your own machine. And technically, if you wanted to modify them, that's absolutely possible to do as well. Microsoft maybe won't accept a pull request on your change.
No,
that's
of course.
not necessarily the case, but at least it is open source in the way that they share it openly. Because like a really big problem in this space is that good app developers, right, maybe know exactly how to develop the application. Maybe know exactly how to, technically normally communicate with a database.
Yes.
But they don't always, and this has been true so many times for me and professionally, they don't necessarily always know what it takes to run an application in a cloud hosting environment.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's a big challenge, right? So how do you feel that this differs from, not cloud hosted? If there's such a, maybe it's not easy to explain, but anyway, let's give it a shot.
I really think that today there's, most developers seems kind of stop when it comes to kind of deployment, where you know how to develop, great coder, but then you want to talk about, DevOps or kind of just a deployment and the kind of scary, environment in production. Talking about, denial of service attacks, the security side of things, the logging, what should be logged. We don't want to log too much. We don't want to log too little. We want to have insights. We want to make it deployment friendly. We want it to be kind of, production ready and production friendly. So the operation guys can actually deploy it, for example. So I really think that we have a lack of understanding of life in production.
That's probably true.
Regardless if it's on site or in the cloud, it's the same problems. Understanding the reality of what can go wrong. When a container does not start up, how do you troubleshoot that? When networking with ports and nowadays you have to use port 8080 instead of port 80, and small details about how do you make things more production friendly. I think that is the thing that is lacking today.
Yeah, that I agree with a lot. So, and I see the same types of challenges out there, like I described. Like in some developers may be a great developer, but that doesn't make them automatically a great cloud developer, because there are things you have to understand and know about that environment to be able to build an optimized solution. Depending on your optimization priorities, is it cost first? Is it security first? What concern is bothering me the most, or where should I put my emphasis? And of course, all the DevOps surroundings and automations, and debugging, logging. There's because you're a good developer doesn't mean you know all those things, right? That's not the same thing. So if you were to, let me just say this. Let me check, because we're about to begin to round off. I love these conversations; they always run out too fast. If somebody doesn't have the cloud foundation yet, they want to develop an application and probably host it in the Azure cloud.
Yes.
How should they? One way to approach this is to check out your website and go and take your course. That would be one really good way. Yay! But outside of that, how do I approach this topic?
It's really a big thing. Of course, to start with maybe app services, it's pretty kind of somewhat easy to get started. But even in app services, it's easy to get confused about the app service plan and app services. So maybe I think the container instances is the simplest route, because there's a less, thing you have to understand to grasp it. Sure, you need to understand containers, but today, understanding containers, I think, is a must in most kind of setup. So actually, container instances, I think, is really the simplest way to get something up and running in the cloud today.
I agree. And because we're Microsoft MVPs, both yourself and I am as well. So congratulations again on your award. We have to of course in every show we have to say Microsoft Learn at least once, right? I think that's important. I think you already did, so I think we got that.
I'm checking. I'm going that piece.
Go to Microsoft really Learn and check out the material. Yay.
Yes.
All right, brilliant. Well, so any parting wisdom here? How do you manage to get this done? Is there value in taking this path? Do you regret what you did, or should other people go this way?
I really recommend people to do it, because I see so many developers in when I go to customers training. They work with Azure, but when you ask them some fundamental questions, they don't really understand what they're doing. So I really think that taking certification, taking it seriously, is a good way to solidify your skills in the cloud and understanding the fundamental parts. And I really think that I came up with a way to describe this. The Duplo blocks, the Lego
blocks,
big, fundamental pieces, understanding the blob storage, app services, containers, and the logging infrastructure with Log Analytics Workspace. Understanding those fundamental building blocks. I think that is where you should start.
That's where you
should
start.
That is easy to move on.
Perfect. That's a great summary of an awesome episode of the Cloud Show. Ture, I want to thank you so much for being the star of the show tonight. It was really good having you.
Thanks, Magnus. It was also a blast.
Yeah, thank you. And audience, we will see you next time on the Cloud Show. Yeah, we're still live. This is I don't know how long this could go on.
Yeah, sometime. I got a lot of stories to tell, so I'm happy to come back later. Or
let me try again. We will see you next time on the Cloud Show. Cut. This just goes on and on. You know what we'll do? We'll just leave.
Yeah.
How about that? Thank you, Tula. See you next time.
Have a nice evening. See you then. Bye-bye.